a special presentation of LLBN with archaeologists Dr. Lawrence Garrity and Dr. Doug Clark. Excavating the Bible.
Welcome to this edition of Excavating the Bible, What Archaeology Can Teach Us. This is a program dedicated to exploring the contributions of Middle Eastern archaeology to our understanding of and appreciation for the Bible. I'm Doug Clark, Director of the Center for Near Eastern Archaeology at La Sierra University in Riverside, California. My co-host, Dr. Larry Garrity, a longtime archaeologist and President Emeritus of La Sierra University, and I will be talking for 3 editions of the program about Seventh-day Adventist contributions to archaeology. And I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah.
We stand in a long line of important people, and we hope to foster a long line after us as well. Exactly. Larry, what would you say leads Adventists? I mean, we could say this about lots of Christians, but what leads or has led Adventists now almost 50 years ago to get seriously interested in archaeology?
Well, as we know, Adventists are people of the book, like other religions, but we take the Bible very seriously and say that we want all our beliefs to be based on Scripture. And if we're wanting to have any new insights about Scripture, they all have to come from archaeology, don't they? That's the only place where true discoveries these days can be made. And so early on, the Adventist Review, which is the paper, General Church paper, used to quote other scholars about archaeology back in our history through the years. But then Dr. Horn and some of his teachers said, why don't we go into the field and make our own discoveries and make our own contributions rather than just depending on others. So I think that Adventists particularly want to know what the context of the biblical teaching's all about.
And that does go back to the beginning of Adventist history. In fact, before there is an official Adventist church, the publications, the church publications. Well, the publications that then became the church publications. Article after article after article about 19th century archaeological discoveries.
Right.
In fact, I did a couple of projects on that. I wished I would have reviewed that before our conversation. But I mean, scores of articles, many, many more about archaeology and ancient history and the biblical setting in ancient history.
And they didn't pick out sensationalist ones.
No.
They tried to get the best evidence that was available to them to share with the membership.
That's right. And I think if we turn our attention to our Adventist pioneers, that is the ones who actually then got into the field, we're going to find the same thing.
That's true.
We're not going to see the sometimes what we might even call archaeology, A-R-K-Y, with focus on the Ark of the Covenant or the Ark of Noah and so on. Those would be exciting to discover.
Yeah.
But they're sensationalists, and they may or may not be all that helpful, at least in today's world, the scientific world of today.
Yeah.
So, who do we begin with? I'm going to ask you, Larry, to step over to the
to talk about the people that are over here on our.
But if you wouldn't mind, tell us about these first people. You know some of these people better than I do.
Well, all the people on this board I have certainly known. The first one, Lynn Wood, was probably the first Adventist who was trained archaeologically. He was an architect and a draftsman. And Nelson Glick, who used to be president of Hebrew Union College, an American archaeologist who worked in Israel and in Jordan for many years, he invited him to come and be his draftsman at Khirbet et Tanur in southern Jordan, which we've often visited. And it was a Nabatean temple from the 2nd century BC down to the 4th.
Spectacular site, spectacular.
Yeah, and he worked also at Tel El Khalifa, which is sometimes called Solomon's iron smelting seaport down by the Red Sea.
That doesn't seem to work anymore.
Not anymore, but at the time that's what they thought it was.
Exactly.
That's right, yeah. And Edwin Thiele never was in the field, but he's known for publishing the book on the mysterious numbers of the Hebrew kings. And up before his time, people thought there were lots of mistakes in the chronological data connected with the Hebrew kings. And in his thesis, he worked it all out. So with the application of 2 or 3 principles, you could make all those numbers fit. And so he's still thought of as perhaps the most important biblical chronologist.
He is. He's cited everywhere.
Yeah.
Whether specialists agree or disagree, he is one of those benchmarks.
That's right.
For
That's
chronology.
right. Siegfried Horn was a student of Linwood when Linwood was the president of Newbold College, at that time Stambrook College, and Siegfried Horn studied there to learn English. He was inspired by what he learned from Wood and from reading that he did as a kid, really, in the histories of the Middle East and biblical history and so on. And so we'll be talking a lot more about him, since he's sort of our mentor, isn't he?
He is. In fact, we'll spend one of our whole editions talking about him, his interests, what went well, what didn't, how he adjusted.
Right.
And I think he represents so well the academic, responsible academic reaction to archaeology, some of which works well with our understanding of the Bible, some of which didn't seem to.
That's true.
I think he's a great example.
That's true.
So we'll come back to talk about him.
He's the first one to have mounted a dig sponsored by the Seventh-day Adventist Church and institutions, and so we give him credit for that. Julia Neuffer worked with him on the Adventist Bible Commentary, and the two of them drafted many of the historical articles in the Bible Commentary, and so she, of course, wanted to join us in our first season of Excavation and helped out a great deal. About that time, Kenneth Vine was the president of Middle East College in Beirut, Lebanon, and he got his doctorate at the University of Michigan and was interested in archaeology. And by the time however, when he actually got involved in field work, he is at Loma Linda University, later La Sierra University, and took students over, and that's how Bailey Gillespie, his colleague in the Department of Religion at La Sierra, also was involved, and the two of them are known for their work at Caesarea Maritima with other American archaeologists.
On the coast of Israel.
On the coast of
Herod's
Israel.
great harbor.
Right. Douglas Waterhouse was teaching at Andrews University, and he worked with us at Hespan through the years, now retired. My name is up there too. You notice that all the people on this list are either dead or retired. So.
Exactly right.
Bill Shea, my colleague at the seminary, was involved with us at Heshbon. He's known as a chronologist also. Paul Bork was teaching at Pacific Union College, and he led people over to work at digs that were run by other individuals.
Correct, and he took students with him.
Right. Ed Lugenbiel was working with the Geoscience Research Institute, and he joined us on various projects. And Udo Vorschech, who started out with us at Hespan, and went on to be the president of the Adventist Seminary in Germany, branched off and started his own project in southern Jordan.
In Friedensau.
In Friedensau, that's right.
Well, we're getting closer, Larry, past the senior citizens.
There you go.
To the next
now, these next few people were all got their start with Siegfried Horn, and with me, Larry Herr, who also got his doctorate at Harvard University and has been associated not only with Hespan, but especially with our project at Umeri. Sten LaBianca, who still teaches at Andrews University and has gone back to Hespan to have a second crack at that city, as it were.
Now actually beginning the third phase.
His third phase, that's right. And this person is very familiar to you, since that's who you are. And we worked together since 1973 at Hespan. We've worked together at Umeri. You and Larry took over the project from me when I moved into full-time administration. And then you have been the sole director of the project, and we'll be going back with the dig this summer.
That's correct.
With the help, of course, of a lot of others. Björnar Storfell got his doctorate at Andrews in archaeology. He taught at Middle East University, and now teaches in a class or two at Oxford, where he's retired. Glenn Hartelius, a student of Kenneth Vine, not active now, but very involved with Vine and the publication of the lamps, of Caesarea. Right. Larry Mitchell went on to work for Adventist Health Systems West, and a very capable person who worked with us at Umeri. Lloyd Willis, who taught at Southwestern Adventist University and is now retired, is probably best known for finding the little inscription that mentions the Ammonite king that's known in Jeremiah 40.
Well, he found all kinds of inscriptions.
That's true.
If we were running low on inscriptions through the course of the weeks of a dig, we would put Lloyd on the sift.
And he had a sharp eye.
He was very sharp eye.
Randall Yonker also started out as a doctoral student at Andrews and ended up at the University of Arizona. He now is the director of the Institute of Archaeology at Andrews University, and he got his start with us as far as the Matapa Plains project, the one sponsored by Adventist, and he now directs the one of the three tells that we're all involved in at Jalul. Right. For a long time, David Merling worked with him because he was a curator at the Horn Museum. He's now
and worked with us
at Umeri. Now a pastor in New Mexico. And Todd Sanders, a student at Harvard, who's gone into business, but still is interested in archaeology.
Seems to be, might even see something of a comeback here.
Right, right. Here are a couple of, actually these first four people are all Europeans, and they have worked with us at various times, but are now in their own projects. Yvonne Gerber is known as a Roman ceramic expert and has read pottery for many, many excavations in the ancient world. These people mostly are all involved initially at Andrews, but at various places, at Walla Walla, again at Andrews, still in Switzerland, Andrews, and Southern Adventist University. And so these are younger people who continue to be active and involved. You can see the places that they've worked.
Many of whom either had a Hispan or an Umeri or Jalul starting point, and some of whom have gone on to their own projects.
That's right. So you can see there are really quite a few individuals through the years who've been involved. And Chang Ho Ji, who works with us at La Sierra University and now has his own sites that he's worked at. In fact, we have interviewed him in our earlier programs here. Connie Gain, who's the curator at the Horn Archaeological Museum, finished her work at UC Berkeley. Kent Bramlett, who's our colleague and your chief archaeologist, at Umeri, got his degree at University of Toronto. These individuals are at Andrews, started out at Andrews, now in Puerto Rico at the seminary there. And most of these are Andrews graduate students who've gone on to work at various other places. You know well Monique and Matt because they're former students of yours.
They are, and Monique is almost finished with her PhD at the University of Chicago in archaeology, and Matt at the University of California, San Diego. Also in archaeology, actually in anthropology, with a strong emphasis on technology. We're dependent on both of them. And then you can notice too, Larry, as this list goes down, it's not just excavation.
Right.
You look at Rhonda, look at Stephanie from an earlier slide, art, architecture. So we depend on a number of people, but these are people who have committed themselves, at least at one point or another for a certain period of time, to doing archaeology coming from Adventist institutions.
So it's really a large field of individuals who develop their own specialties and who have gotten their start with the main Adventist project from Andrews, La Sierra, and other places, but have gone on, some of them to their own work, but we continue to depend on this field of
the only problem with this list, it is really quite impressive, but the only problem is I'm sure we've left people off.
Probably.
And we may get some phone calls, but at least we tried to be inclusive here of everyone.
And we welcome those phone calls,
and we do.
Don't we?
We want to
somebody should be on this list, then be sure and tell us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And while you're still here, Larry,
okay.
we have a photo of Lynn Wood and of Siegfried Horn.
Right. So as we said before, Lynn Wood was probably the first trained individual who worked in the Middle Eastern archaeology, and it's interesting that he worked in Jordan with Nelson Glick. He was a president at Newbold, a president at Southern. He taught Hebrew Bible at the seminary and actually passed away here in Loma Linda. And his student was Siegfried Horn, who has his own interesting story that we'll be talking more about. Here Dr. Horn is holding a little sculpture of Baal that is found in the museum that's named after him at Andrews University. And he played a seminal role in that he was the one who started the Heshbon excavation that many of us got our start at.
Now, are you the one who actually picked up this statue from Jerusalem?
You know, this was already in the collection.
It was there before he had you go
That's
and
right,
pick things
that's
up.
right,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Well, I think what we'll do is look at some of the sites where Adventists have played a role, ending with the major Adventist work in Jordan in what we call the Madaba Plains Project. So, Shechem, who worked here?
This is where Dr. Horn cut his teeth on archaeology, working with G. Ernest Wright, who later became my professor at Harvard. At that time, it was a Drew McCormick excavation, and Siegfried said, I need to get the best training possible in the field.
Right.
And so he worked for 3 seasons
And he came here.
Right.
Not a really good picture, but Tel Gezer in western Israel. Site of lots of participation from Adventists in different sorts of ways over a long period of time.
Right. So Dr. Glick, who we've talked about as a pioneer archaeologist, and Dr. Wright were 2 individuals who started this project back in the early 60s. And this is actually my very first experience, was here in 1968, and it was a site that was given by the Egyptian pharaoh to Solomon when Solomon married an Egyptian queen.
Oh, Gezer has so much history. We can talk about Gezer.
Right.
In fact, we need to have a whole program on Gezer.
We do. Right. Here we're looking down at Caesarea at the harbor, aren't we?
Right.
Caesarea Maritima, where Dr. Vine and Dr. Gillespie worked. Right, yeah.
A stela, a stone, a carved stone, a standing stone, from a site in Jordan, Tel Balua, where Udo Vorcek and Friedberg Nienau, both Adventists, have worked.
And if I'm not mistaken,
the Vincents are also working.
That's true.
Too.
If I'm not mistaken, it's kind of a palimpsest, because the original inscription was here, and then later these figures were cut into it right over the inscription, and so it represents 2 different periods.
So I'm going to move quickly through a few more. Here, the Department of Antiquities of Jordan director, with finds from Ataruz. We've had a program on Ataruz as well. Extremely interesting religious or cultic remains. The site of Tel Keyafa in Israel. A number of important finds here, including this inscription. You can hardly read it on this particular slide, but if we put it print out like this, it's had a lot of discussion. May mention some biblical characters. Some people would argue it does, probably so, and then some biblical themes as well. And then Tel Lachish, where Michael Hazel and I think Yossi Garfinkel, are they both going? So Michael Hazel from Southern.
They worked at the previous site
they did.
that we just showed, and they're going to this one.
And they're going to this
which,
site.
of course, has been excavated through the years by other teams. It's a very important biblical site.
And then the Madaba Plains Project. And we've talked about this on other occasions with other places. Just to give you an idea of the time period, Heshbon goes way back to 68 and is still going. Mary is still going from 1984, as is Jalul. Another phase probably coming at
And
Jalul.
we would say that Andrews University, the College of Arts and Sciences, sponsors this, and we here at La Sierra University sponsor this one, and Tel Jalul is sponsored by the seminary at Andrews.
At Andrews. Andrews has a couple. I have 3 photos here, one from each of those sites. This is the team from Heshbon in the second phase as a good-sized team. Here from Jalul, I don't know the year. I could look that up, but I don't know the year. This one is from 2008 at Ameri. So if you happen to see your face in there, if you're watching this, celebrate that. You're part of the team, part of the group that has made this possible. And just a quick look at this map of the major archaeological sites in the Mataba Plains project. And then maybe some things about books. I've given my last copy of this book away. And Larry, we're still looking for yours. I'm sorry we lost it somewhere. But in any case, an important volume out of which comes a number of quotes that are going to be important to us as we think about archaeology of the MPP, Mataba Plains Project. And here's the first quote. Larry, read this and tell us who Bill Deaver is.
The Mataba Plains Project has long been the flagship project of Adventist archaeology in the Middle East. William Deaver is probably the best known biblical archaeologist working in the United States. He chaired the Department of Archaeology at the University of Arizona for many years, was the director of the center in Jerusalem, named for Dr. Albright, and has widely published. And people sort of interact and trust his judgment on many things. And so we are proud of what he says about us.
And we will come back.
Yeah.
In fact, we'll see a video clip from him. This, another one, and again, speaking, published in the volume that we just saw the picture of. He talks about how important, how informed archaeologists are. We're all clever on the fourth line. We have good degrees. We all work hard. But in the end, character trumps all. And that's what he admires in Adventists. And it's clear to me that the essential difference lies in Adventist commitment or character. And as well, the North American communities, he's talking about the kind of work that has happened in Adventist thought and in Adventist excavations. And then here, as a friendly critic, again in this article, he says, just keep on doing what you're doing. You will evolve with the discipline, as you always have. Often in the vanguard, he's very nice. He says very good words about us. We hope to live up now to his standards, I think we need to say.
That's true.
And saying that the future is in our hands. And then this is from an earlier article in which he talked about American institutions, Adventist institutions, and how they support archaeology and archaeologists, and that if we're going to succeed with biblical archaeology, we're going to need to do it as the Adventists do. We don't want to pound our chests too much on this, but it's very rewarding to have people talk to us about that.
And I think this gives us the opportunity to thank many of our viewers, doesn't it, for their support and for their work through the years that has made what we do possible. Dr. Deaver says that Adventists are serious about their work. We in turn say thank you for the support of so many of our members.
Okay, we're going to move to the video clip. It's just 3 minutes long. Well, what will we see of Bill Deaver here?
You know, again, we should say that he's probably the most authoritative voice on the relationship between archaeology and the Bible. He has a PhD from Harvard University, chaired the department at the University of Arizona, and is very respected.
Very much so. The next slide, Larry, after the video clip, we've heard some very interesting things and very affirming things from Bill Deaver, is a review of that volume by Piotr Bienkowski, very important archaeologist.
From the British Museum in London.
He is. And he talks about the Mataba Plains project. This is right at the end of his review of that volume. And he talks about, right at the very last, the last sentence, without it, that is, without the footprint of the Mataba Plains project, we would all be working in a different way and with a poorer set of theoretical models. For a scholar, for archaeologists, that does make the heart throb, doesn't it?
It does.
And we're so grateful to our colleagues. They're great friends, and they help us a lot. Now, I think we'll say something about the centers, and then we'll need to close for this particular edition. There are 3 primary centers. The first one is the Institute of Archaeology and the Siegfried Horn Museum at Andrews University. It's been there for some years. I think you may have established that, or at least helped to establish it. And then the Lynn Wood Archaeological Museum at Southern Adventist University that Michael Hazel established. Bill Deaver's material is in that museum, the display materials, and then the Center for Near Eastern Archaeology at La Sierra University.
Which you had an important hand in establishing.
We played this role. Thank you, Larry, for your help today, and thank all of you for joining us for this edition of Excavating the Bible. We hope the program has provided some food for thought and food for the soul as well, and we look forward to next time. Until then, think ancient. Keep believing and keep exploring. For Excavating the Bible, I'm Doug Clark.